Hi everyone. I just wanted to do a separate video on an aspect which I think is more important than many of us realize, certainly than I realized when I started to contemplate it a few days ago. So I really wanted to share my thoughts with you on this, and it's about the Mars cycle. Mars, looking particularly at its activity from the 6th of December. I'm filming this on the 4th, so it's in 2 days' time, from the 6th of December until the 2nd of May. And that includes its retrograde phase, because Mars actually moves retrograde on the 6th of December at 6 degrees 10 minutes of Leo. Now, normally Mars moves retrograde round about every 2 years, sort of 25, 26 months. And it does it pretty reliably. But the last time it moved retrograde in Leo was from December 2009 until the 10th of March 2010. So if you look back to that period, what were you kind of going back over? Retrograde, the RE part of it, is a way to think of it is going back over. With Mercury retrograde, you might be rethinking, going back over with your mind over a project. With Mars, it tends to be redoing or rehashing in some way. So if you go back to that December to mid-March period, 2009 to 2010, what were you birthing or going back over that started to really come to manifestation from the second part of March onwards in 2010? Because it could well be that you're taking that to a higher level this time around, because it's going to be broadly the same house areas that you are looking at now that were activated then. Then 2009 to March 2010, Mars was retrograding from 19 degrees of Leo to 0 degrees of Leo by the 10th of March 2010. So we're starting this retrograde phase on the 6th of December at 6 degrees of Leo, but they're similar areas that Mars is going to be covering. It's going to be retrograding to 17 degrees of Cancer. It's going to reach that point on the 24th of February, and at which point it moves direct. So see which houses, moving retrograde from 6 of Leo to 17 degrees of Cancer, which house or houses that falls in your chart. It may well straddle 2 houses. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. Go to this link below, get a 2-part video series which really takes you from zero in understanding where these points are in your chart that I refer to. I refer to different points in every update. This is not a birth chart analysis. These are teaching videos for you to understand how to find these points in your chart. It's the beginning of your astrological journey. So, for instance, if it straddles 2 house areas, you may well find that the themes of those houses become intertwined. You know, for instance, if 6 of Leo back to 17 of Cancer incorporate your 8th and 9th houses, could it, one expression of that could be, have you been doing some deep diving spiritually, 8th house, and you are now putting that into some formal course of training, 9th house, to take it to a further stage? Or is it your 9th and 10th houses? You've been pursuing a course of study that is going to help you activate and enlarge your career area, 10th house. So you can start to see how the 2 house areas could come together, but it may just fall in 1 house area for you. On the 6th of December, it moves retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo. It retrogrades back to 17 of Cancer in February, 24th of February. 24th of February, it moves direct, but it doesn't cross 6 degrees of Leo again until the 2nd of May. So this is a very long period of activity, both going back over and then moving forwards from the 17th of February. So it's going to be a very interesting phase. And remember what retrograde means. It's just an optical illusion, really, that if you've ever been on a train, say you're leaving a train station and there's another train almost running parallel to you and your train is moving faster than the train next to you, it appears that that train next to you is moving backwards. It isn't. Both trains are moving forwards, so it's an optical illusion. So that's what retrogradation is. You have the optical illusion that that planet in the sky is moving backwards in relation to the Earth. It isn't. Planets never move backwards, they only ever move forwards. So it's the optical illusion. But what we tend to do is the energy of the planet operates differently, which I'm going to explain in a moment. When a planet is retrograde, it isn't actually weaker. The archetype, the symbolism is stronger because retrogradation means the planet is closer to the Earth. You may even be able to see Mars as a red planet in the night sky, so it's closer to the Earth. Not only that, but Mars is actually technically out of bounds from the 30th of December to the 7th of April. And what that means is when a planet is out of bounds, it is technically beyond the 23 degrees north or south of the ecliptic where planets normally orbit. And that means that the planet tends to operate in a more extreme, more out of control way. You know, for instance, people who are born with either their, let's say, their Mercury or their Uranus out of bounds in their birth chart, they can be quite genius because their mind operates out of bounds beyond the normal kind of thinking mechanisms that most of us have. They have a kind of genius level very often, particularly with Uranus. So Mars is going to be very strong, very volatile potentially at this time. And of course, traditionally, we think of Mars as god of war in its original archetypal description. So I'm going to talk about the more difficult expression of Mars first, and then move on to how we can use that energy differently. Mars is also strong while it's in Leo because Leo is a fixed fire sign. Mars operates very well in fire signs because it naturally rules Aries, the primal, the cardinal fire sign. Now, Mars in Leo can, be quite demanding, wants to be center stage, wants to do things its own way, wants to be in the limelight, wants all the applause, wants to be the adored celebrity, wants to be powerful, wants to be a drama queen. But I think this retrogradation of Mars could mark the beginning of the end of kind of the age of celebrity. Hollywood. And I'm not just saying that because of this retrograde phase of Mars. I'm also saying it because Saturn and Neptune are in Pisces. Now, Saturn in Pisces, I had a whole video on this back in March 2023, is the end of Piscean things. Well, Piscean things are things like glamour and illusion and film and video and idealization of people. Neptune is in its sign of rulership. It rules Pisces. And Neptune, actually the day after the 6th, on the 7th of December, is also stationary direct. Sorry, it's moving the opposite way to Mars. Mars is moving stationary retrograde on the 6th. Neptune is moving stationary direct on the 7th. But this is a slight tangent, but Neptune is moving direct then all the way through till it starts to leave Pisces, and on the 30th of March it enters 0 degrees of Aries, and that is a really big deal because both Saturn and Neptune are beginning to enter Aries, 0 of Aries next year. That will be exact on the 20th of February at 0 of Aries in 2026. I think that is possibly the most powerful aspect we have in the next couple of years for the beginning of a whole new episode for humanity. I think it's incredibly powerful. So, but Neptune, Saturn in Pisces, but also Neptune in Pisces, moving through these last few degrees of Pisces and starts to exit by the end of March. All of these things are signatures for the end of idealization, the end of a kind of celebrity culture. And that will have many different reasons, as we may be well aware, and different implications as well. Because again, we're moving away from this adoration, or we are the victim and they are the, the gods and goddesses. We're moving way, way out of that episode for humanity. Mars is also strengthened. And by the way, if you have any planets or angles between 0 and 3 degrees of the fixed signs, which are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you may be feeling this energy I'm discussing in this video particularly strongly. So Mars, another reason Mars is strengthened, apart from all I've mentioned so far, Mars is also strengthened when it comes into exact opposition to Pluto. Now, it did that on the 3rd of November. That was just before the US election. And I never know the event, but how it manifested then very clearly was a lot of anger and separation and very high emotion and polarization. This is an opposition. So you see things being, opposite to you or coming at you in some way. And then the next opposition is on the 3rd of January. And by then, Mars will be at 1 degree of Leo and Pluto will be at 1 degree of Aquarius. Now, this is the first time in our lifetime that opposition, which happens fairly regularly, just over every 2 years or so, it's the first time in our lifetime this will be happening with Pluto in Aquarius, because Pluto hasn't been in Aquarius since 1798. So I can guarantee that this has not happened in our lifetime before, and this has a very different flavor. Now, at a primitive level, and we saw this with the square, another hard aspect between Mars and Pluto, which I've mentioned before, 7th of October 2023, Hamas attacked Israel. It's a brute force. It's extreme aggression, it's anger, it's impulses, it's reactivity. It truly is brute force. Wanting your own way. It's kind of id anger. I'm all powerful. I've got to win at any cost. It's hate, it's separation. And it's quite tricky when Mars is retrograde, because Mars is a very simple, direct energy. It wants to move. It's a strong physicality. It wants to go. It wants to run marathons, climb a mountain. It wants to just go, go, go. And when it's retrograde, that energy is turned inwards. So that isn't easy for Mars, which is just simple, direct, clear. I want to go. I want to climb that mountain, achieve that goal, run that race, be the first, be the best. So there's a sense to some degree of churn or frustration at a personal level when Mars is retrograde. But a way that we can start to use this productively is turn it inwards to start to integrate it. Because this opposition between Mars and Pluto is really all about power. And in our lives, as I said many times in videos, we've deferred to external power. So we've read and lived Pluto as state power, top-down power, and Mars is our own individual power, which has been kind of controlled by that top-down power. But with this opposition, which I'm suggesting we can use better, we can take that same energy and integrate it and use it in a much more productive way. Both planets are about power. So this is encouraging us to turn that energy inwards to find our own power. Leo, along with Aries, I think there's two key signs representing sovereignty. And Leo is the sign most associated with the heart. This is heart energy. So this is about a deep dive into our hearts to find the power of our hearts, which Mars will activate. And really, this is the beginning of discovering the multidimensionality of our hearts, of activating the multidimensionality of our hearts. And our hearts, as I've mentioned several times in videos, is the organ that connects us with the cosmos. Now, that's because it's the largest electromagnetic organ in our body, and the cosmos is very much a whole field of electromagnetic energy. Zach, channeled by my good friend Janet Trelaw, has also said very clearly, your heart is your direct connection to the cosmos. The Z's via Lee Harris has said exactly the same. Our heart is our connection to the cosmos. And I believe that we're going to discover a great deal more about that electromagnetic mechanism. But this retrogradation of Mars and the opposition to Pluto in particular is activating the depth and power of our heart energy. Because from now on, this is about shifting from our mind, from the full moon in Gemini, into our hearts, from moving from the information age to the age of the heart. Leo is about our sovereignty, as I've said, and we are no longer, if we use this well, going to be living in victim consciousness. We're going to be finding a deeper strength and courage, both words for Mars and also Leo. And it's really helpful to be introspective at this time, to turn this energy inwards, as I say, pull back. It's ironic because you're going to be listening to this, of course, on the internet, but if you can pull back from so much social media, just pull back, just find book stillness meetings with yourself, find quiet time, find silence. And once we are living from the heart and living much more in a unity consciousness, which I profoundly believe we're going to be doing in a much bigger way from now on, that's the end of war. That's the end of poverty. That's the end of hunger. Because you can't fight someone if you're living from the heart. You can't see somebody else in poverty or hunger if we're living in unity consciousness, because they are you. We are all one. This is the fast way to put an end to all this stuff, this horror, this unimaginable tragedy that's going on in so many ways across the world. This is the fast way to end that. Yes, it seems invisible, and yes, we're not doing anything so tangible like being on the streets, but it's the energetic, it's the quantum way to achieve that. And there's so much evidence out there about that. And, so many other people talk about that. So Pluto here represents the transformation. It's the planet of transformation, it's activating the action principle of Mars so that it moves from so much fight against what's against us to really creating a kind of collective Aquarius loving courage, Leo, and courage also Mars. So Pluto in Aquarius is going to help to activate the collective loving will, to encourage us all to connect to our hearts and come together. And it's being activated during this Mars retrograde period. And, by the time we get into early May, I think we'll be living much more in this heart-based collective. I truly do. So much is going to happen in the next few months. It's going to be dizzying if we're referring to 3D. That's why it's even more important that we turn inwards. And so this shedding of victimhood, this finding our internal power, is via connecting to our hearts. And of course, we do that. I know we do that in our Sunday evening free meditation, 7 p.m. UK time on a Sunday, free. And we've been doing that since September 2023, I think, coming together, connecting with our hearts. Many people can see that very clearly in the meditation. They can actually see this web of light across the earth that gets stronger every time where we are connecting with our hearts. It's just beautiful. And recently, with all of the terrible tragedy and war in the world, I've suggested that we come together every night if we can, or certainly more nights as far as you are able than just Sunday night, even if you can just make one more night or two more nights. And I've also suggested, because Rory Duff, who many of you will know his work, is extremely ill at the moment. Many of you have been touched by his work and really opened up to his beautiful, beautiful work. I've also recently suggested that we put Rory into those meditations too, if you feel that's appropriate for you and you know Rory, or you have been touched by his work. You can put any people and animals who are suffering at this time into the circle, that heart of love, that activated global heart of love that we are connecting into in our nightly meditations, or whatever time in the world it is for you. So just to come back to the details of the technical details, if you like, the astrological details of this. Mars is retrograde and continues retrograde until the 24th of February. So it's backing up in Leo, but it enters Cancer on the 6th of January and stays in Cancer until the 18th of April. The 18th of April. And so when it enters Cancer, this has a different meaning. It goes from the Leo, the heart, the will, the sovereignty, into activating nurturing and self-care in a bigger way, nurturing self-care, nurturing, because we are going to need to be in good shape ourselves with all the events of next year. We're going to need to be strong physically, strong emotionally. And so really turn your attention to that. The old analogy of when the plane is going down, you put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help anyone else, because if you don't do that, you're in no shape at all to help anybody else. It's that kind of analogy. So think profoundly about that. What can you do? Can you meditate more often? Can you take more stillness meetings? Can you connect? Can you ground? Can you put bare feet on the grass, bare feet on the earth? If the weather isn't appropriate for that, if you're living in the UK or colder, you can use grounding mats. Just think of the ways you could do breath work to ground. There are many different ways to do this, but really do think about more self-care than you have really dedicated yourself to before, because that will make us more able to help other people. And the other way it will work, I think, as well, we've always thought of Cancer as biological family, which indeed it tends to be, but with Pluto in Aquarius, I think we are going to be connecting much more to our family of frequency, to our soul tribe, much more to our family of frequency. And that's how that's going to work. And so another aspect of Mars here is that right at the turn of the year, end of December, first couple of days of January, Mars comes into a trine to dwarf planet Manway. Dwarf planet Manway is the highest archangel closest to the mind of God, the highest intelligence in the universe, dedicated to the triumph of light over dark. Manway with his wife Vada, and you can read about this in the creation myth. Tolkien wrote about it in his book Silmarillion. They were responsible for creating the universe originally. And Manway is being very activated. Manway is conjunct exactly conjunct the North Node at the Capricorn solstice. I'll be putting out a video on that in the next 10 days or so. It's very busy here right now. And so Mars is trine to Manway at the turn of the year, end of December, first couple of days of January. On the 5th of January, it is also trine to the North Node at 0 of Aries. Now, the shift of the nodal axis out of Aries into Pisces for another 18 and a half months, whole separate video on that coming up, probably end of December, early January. But the activation of that 0 of Aries is incredibly important, from the trine, from Mars, and also the North Node transiting over that 0 of Aries, because this is the very first degree of the zodiac. I call it the creator degree. Neptune will enter 0 of Aries on the 30th of March, and it will spend quite a lot of time next year hovering around 0 of Aries. And Saturn will enter that as well next year. They will come together exactly to the degree at 0 of Aries next year, but not to the minute. They come exactly to the degree and the minute 0 of Aries on the 20th of February, 2026. And I believe that over the next 2 years, that is possibly the strongest astrological aspect we have. To me, it represents the birth of a whole new episode for humanity living at a higher level. It's a spiritual initiation for humanity that is being activated right now, starting with the Mars retrograde phase that this whole video has been about, and also by North Node, moving on to that at the turn of the year. So Pluto, in its opposition to Mars over this period, is transmuting, very good word for Pluto, transmuting the old expression of Mars from the god of war, from fight, opposition, war, aggression, separation, division, conquering. I got to win at all costs. I'm the champion. I win, you lose. It's transmuting it from anger, aggression, hate, polarization into love, into a loving courage and an inner strength and sovereignty to a degree I don't think we've ever had before in this lifetime or many others. And please remember that the future is malleable. We so often get into the illusion of thinking tomorrow is a fixed film set. It absolutely isn't. We are changing tomorrow in every moment today. Listening to this video, you're changing tomorrow. Me speaking here is changing tomorrow. It truly is. Our future is incredibly malleable and is becoming more malleable as we shift density, as we move forwards, and as we gradually moving towards becoming the light body in a clearer way. We're shedding density, Saturn in Pisces, dissolving density. And so if we're creating less from love, less from anger and hate and polarization, if we start to create from love, we are operating from the highest timeline. We are never going to create new Earth from anger, aggression, dominance, I'm in charge, control. We are never, ever going to create new Earth from those energies. We are going to create new Earth from love, joy, compassion, gratitude. Those kinds of energies, which I always suggest for our group meditation, our free meditation. And also, it's interesting, Lee Harris recently, via the Z's, his guides, the Z's, has started to talk about a cosmic love. And I think that is absolutely what we're moving towards. I have no doubt that we're moving towards a cosmic love and much greater connection with our galactic family. I've said this many, many times, and that's coming in much more strongly next year. But how do we access that? We've never felt that knowingly, certainly in this lifetime, probably before. Well, I think you access it by human love, really. By human love when we are at our best, when we love our partners, our families, our animals, our trees, nature, all of those things, when we have that simple joy of loving the bird song, the beech tree, our pet dog, our pet cat, our baby, somebody else's baby. That's how we access that feeling of love, which ultimately, as we move into this much stronger Aquarian energy, we're going to start to feel as cosmic love as we connect in a much bigger way to our galactic family. And that's going to be one heck of a shift for us. So I hope that's helped you. There was a lot in there today, a lot of information. And of course, I'll be referring to this Mars cycle as I go through the updates as well. But I've just been contemplating it, that it needed a whole separate video on its own because it's so important. And I hope that's helped. I'll put links below for the meditation video and anything else I feel is relevant. God bless. Hope it's helped you. Bye for now.